I never imagined my life would lead to this moment. My name is Lena. I am 38 years old, and my husband, Victor, is a successful businessman. He is busy with work. His time is either spent on long business trips or in meetings, glued to his phone and computer screens. I have always supported my husband's work, understanding the pressure he has to bear. However, every time he leaves the house or works hard, I feel a strange sense of deprivation and loneliness. We have a son named Ethan, who is now 20 years old. Ethan does not like being constrained and always craves freedom. After 2 years of college, Ethan decided to drop out to work. Even though my family is well off and can support him, he found a job at a grocery store near our house, working hard and usually coming home at noon to rest. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue bringing you more fascinating true stories like this one. And don't forget to watch this video till the end because this story is going to be incredibly interesting. This summer was especially hot. The heat seemed to seep through every crack in the door, filling the house. One day, like any other, Victor left for work early in the morning, busy with his schedule. The house became quiet when he firmly closed the door, and I felt the silence as only I was left in the vast space. Ethan still worked the morning shift at the store and would usually return home at noon. The sun was high in the sky, radiating intense heat that made the whole yard tingle. I sat by the window, looking out with a sad gaze when I heard the sound of footsteps signaling Ethan's return. The door opened, and he walked in, sweat dripping down his forehead, his t-shirt clinging to his body. "Mom, it's so hot today," Ethan said, placing the bag of snacks on the kitchen table. I smiled, watching my eldest son grow up day by day, my heart filled with indescribable emotions. Ethan walked over to the refrigerator, took out a bottle of cold water, and sat down on the old wooden chair. The space returned to its usual silence, with only the steady rotation of the ceiling fan and the pattering sound of water drops falling from the cold water bottle onto the floor. We sat in silence, each absorbed in our own thoughts in the sweltering summer heat. The heat became unbearable for me that afternoon, so I decided to take a shower to ease the discomfort. As I approached the bathroom, I heard the sound of running water. I took a few more steps and realized that the bathroom door was ajar, revealing a small gap through which a faint light leaked out. Before my eyes stood Ethan, standing under the stream of water, naked. Even though I was his mother, this scene made my heart flutter. My heart pounded as if it was about to jump out of my chest. Not knowing what to do, I stood frozen. Ethan was still, absorbed in the shower, completely unaware that I was standing there, witnessing that private moment. The hot feeling in my body didn't come only from the weather, but it seemed like something incomprehensible was rising up, filling my heart. I could not explain my thoughts at that time, only knowing that the confusion and embarrassment made me want to leave quickly before being discovered. But when I took a step back, my foot accidentally hit the mop nearby, causing it to fall to the floor with a loud noise. The sudden sound made me panic. My heart felt like it was tightening, and I quickly ran back to the living room, hoping that Ethan wouldn't notice my presence. Sitting down on the chair, I felt my heart still pounding, my breathing becoming rapid, and my whole body trembling, as if I had just escaped a dangerous situation. The sound of the mop falling seemed to echo in my head, making me afraid that Ethan would remember or notice something unusual. However, the house remained quiet. There was no sound of footsteps from the bathroom. I tried to calm myself down, but the turmoil inside wouldn't subside. The image of Ethan, naked, still appeared clearly and hauntingly in my mind. I don't know why, but that moment seemed to awaken something deep inside that I had long tried to ignore. The feeling of shame and guilt mixed together made me both confused and worried. I stood up and paced the living room, trying to push the image out of my mind, but it stubbornly returned, haunting me and making me uneasy. The sound of water in the bathroom stopped, and just a few minutes later, Ethan walked out. He was only wrapped in a towel, drops of water glistening down his strong shoulders. I glanced at him quickly, then turned away, deliberately avoiding Ethan's eyes. But I couldn't hide the confusion in my heart. Ethan looked at me for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Mom, did you hear something? I think something just fell." I tried to keep my voice as normal as possible, even though it shook slightly. Mom dropped the mop. It's okay. After saying that, I clearly felt the vibration in my words, quickly turning my face away to hide my anxiety and embarrassment. Ethan shrugged, then quietly walked back to his room, closing the door behind him. The house once again fell into a stifling silence, but my mind was not at ease. The feeling of heat in my body, combined with the summer heat and the haunting image of Ethan, made me feel stuck between reality and chaotic thoughts that should not exist. I sat down on the chair, holding my head in my hands, trying to dispel the images that kept lingering in my mind. "Lena, what are you doing?" I blamed myself, my inner voice filled with fear and shame. Though I tried to calm myself down, since that day, my eyes towards Ethan were no longer the same. I didn't understand why, and even more so, I didn't know how to escape this vortex of confusing emotions. Time flew by, and the next morning began with the same rhythm. Victor, as usual, sat down to eat breakfast hurriedly, his eyes focused on his phone screen, checking every email and message. I quietly set the table for breakfast, trying to keep my face calm despite the sadness that silently rose. When he announced his upcoming long business trip, expected to last a whole week, even though I was used to Victor's busy lifestyle, every time he announced his departure, my heart couldn't help but sink, a feeling of emptiness spreading inside me like a darkness. "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything at home after this business trip," Victor said in a hurried voice, forcing a smile before standing up and leaving the house. The sound of the door closing echoed, leaving the space to fall into a vague silence. Ethan sat across from me, gently stirring the cup of coffee in front of him, his eyes tired and thoughtful. When Victor was gone, Ethan looked up, his eyes searching for sympathy. "Mom, I have a week off from the shop. How about we go on a trip? It's been a long time since we've been out together as a family." I smiled subtly and shook my head, a hint of regret flashing in my eyes. "Your dad is very busy. He's on a business trip for a whole week this time." I couldn't help but notice that Ethan's eyes were slightly sad. His lips pursed as if he was trying to hold back something. He didn't say anything more, just nodded slightly, then stood up to clean up the dishes on the table. I wondered how long it had been since I had the chance to sit down and really listen to Ethan. His thoughts, feelings, and dreams. Life had swept us both into busy cycles, not allowing us to stop and look deeply into each other's eyes. We sat in the living room, the cool breeze from outside blowing in through the half-open window, bringing with it a bit of fresh air. Soft sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting warm streaks of light on the carpet underfoot. "Mom, I have a lot to tell you," Ethan said, his voice much deeper and more mature than before. "Whatever it is, just tell me. I'm listening." I smiled, my eyes gentle as I looked at him, encouraging him. He began to tell stories about everyday life, work at the shop, funny customers, and unexpected situations that made him laugh. I listened attentively, feeling like I had found a part of the connection that had gradually faded over the years. Ethan's eyes flashed with joy as he recalled memorable moments, making my heart feel strangely warm. Time passed quickly, and I realized that I was truly immersed in the conversation. As if all the distance between us had disappeared in this happy moment, I teased him, "You're so big. Have you thought about having a girlfriend?" "Mom, I see many girls in the neighborhood staring at me every time I pass by." Ethan laughed loudly, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Mom, let's talk about that slowly. I still want to focus on work first," he said, his tone both joking and sincere. We continued chatting, recalling warm old memories, the times the whole family went on picnics when Ethan was little or when he was naughty and got scolded by Victor and me. Then the whole family burst out laughing. The air in the room filled with lively stories, as if time had turned back to those happy days. Time passed quickly, and the noon sunlight shone more strongly through the window, making the room brighter and warmer. I felt my heart lighten, as if the visible distance between Ethan and me had been filled with love and understanding. A moment of silence passed. The clock showed that it was almost noon, and both mother and son gradually fell silent, each immersed in their own private thoughts. But the atmosphere between us had changed, warmer, closer, and more peaceful than ever. Suddenly, Ethan looked straight into my eyes and asked a question that left me speechless, not knowing how to answer. "Mom, did you watch me take a bath yesterday?" My heart pounded, my face turning as red as fire when I heard that question. My mouth was dry, unable to utter a word. Ethan looked at me intently, his eyes shining with curiosity mixed with patience, as if waiting for an answer, not giving me too much time to think. "Actually, yesterday I knew you were watching, but I just pretended not to know." Hearing that confession, my heart felt like someone was squeezing it, both embarrassed and worried. Chaotic thoughts swirled in my mind. Ethan knew, so why did he keep silent until now? I tried to open my mouth to speak, but every word seemed stuck in my throat. Our eyes met, and I felt something strange and indescribable pass between us. Just as I was about to speak, Ethan suddenly spoke up, breaking the awkward silence. "Mom, I like you." Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. "I like you, not like a mother and son, but like a lover." Ethan's sudden confession stunned me, all the emotions mixed in my heart: surprise, worrying, and something hard to name. My heart stopped beating for a moment. His eyes did not leave me. Those eyes contained not only seriousness, but also a vague hope. I was silent, not knowing how to face the truth that had just been revealed. My heart fluttered, and I found it difficult to describe. As Ethan's words lingered in my ears, "Mom, you asked me if I wanted a girlfriend, but in my heart, I only wanted you." I felt my chest tighten, my heart pounding. I hadn't experienced this feeling for a long time. I was surprised, confused, trying to find words in my chaotic thoughts, but was met with silence. Ethan sat close, his eyes very worried and tender, as if reading my inner turmoil. My heart ached between self-reproachful questions. How could I feel like this when I had not been close to anyone for so long? Did I deserve to feel fragile and young again? "Are you serious?" I asked hastily, throwing the words through trembling eyelashes, but Ethan did not respond. Instead, he took my hand. Warm as the heart of spring, I felt the softness in Ethan's eyes, making all my thoughts suddenly disappear. Ethan pulled me into his embrace, his arms wrapped tightly around me as if holding me back from my worries. The sound of his heartbeat was like a coppery mist in his chest, and his breath warmed my ears. "I just want you." That whispered sentence still surrounded me like a silken mist. Ethan's lips were close. I felt my heart somersault in my chest. In that moment, I knew that no answer could express my feelings as clearly as Ethan's embrace. From that moment on, when Ethan and I first gave ourselves to each other, all boundaries seemed to disappear. We held back no reservations and lost ourselves in each other's arms, as if the outside world did not exist. From that day on, a secret was formed between us, a clandestine and dangerous relationship. Every time Victor was away, the normally quiet house became a place of intense undercurrents. Ethan's gaze on me seemed to ignite all suspicion, and I could not resist that inexplicable attraction. The thrill of the door closing, the sound of each cautious footstep, and the hasty embrace felt like we were afraid the world would see us. Deep down, we both knew that this relationship should not exist, that it could only lead to pain. But despite everything, we still rushed into each other's arms against all reason, like moths drawn to a forbidden light. In those furtive moments, I did not think of the consequences or the reproaches. I only knew that, for Ethan, the prohibition became more attractive than ever. But every secret has its expiration date, and deep down, I know that one day the truth will be revealed and take away everything we are holding on to. Ethan and I continue our lives in a tug of war between emotion and reason. Every time we face each other, embarrassment and invisible desire always creep into our eyes, our accidental touches. That inner conflict torments me every day, but I still cannot stop. We share moments that we both know should not exist, moments full of emotion, but also filled with guilt. One afternoon, Victor unexpectedly came home earlier than expected. The sound of the car stopping in the yard and the sound of the key in the door lock made me stand, a feeling of fear rising. Ethan and I just managed to separate, both of our eyes confused and anxious. Victor walked in, his face tired but his eyes searching. He looked at me and Ethan, a little suspicious, but said nothing. The atmosphere in the room was tense, like a string about to break. I knew things couldn't go on like this. The tension between the three of us was suffocating. I had to face the fact that I needed to end this wrong relationship before things became irreparable. One evening, I called Ethan out onto the porch. The dim light fell on his face. His eyes filled with emotion. "We can't go on like this, Ethan," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I love you like a son, and that's the right thing to do. Anything else would only bring pain." Ethan fell silent, his eyes on the ground, sadness spreading across his face. Finally, he nodded, his shoulders slumping as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Our relationship ended quietly. But in both of our hearts, the pain remained. Victor still didn't know what had happened. I decided to spend more time with my family to repair what was broken inside me and rebuild trust. Ethan left home for a while to find balance and start a new life. I realized that sometimes loneliness and the longing for affection can make people do wrong things. The biggest lesson I learned was sincerity and the courage to face your own feelings. To protect what is truly important, you need to let go of what should not be held on to. The end leaves a bit of regret and reflection, but also the beginning of healing and moving on after all that I have been through. I want to share some reflections with those who may be facing similar challenges or emotions. What I learned is to know yourself and face loneliness. There was a time when I felt trapped in loneliness and emptiness. Instead of looking for comfort in the wrong places, I realized that I needed to learn to face those emotions, ask myself why I felt that way, and work to address the root cause. Maintain boundaries and respect your self-worth when dealing with difficult emotions. I realized that maintaining boundaries in relationships is extremely important. Respect for yourself and others helps prevent mistakes that you may later regret. Communication and connection are key. If you feel lonely in your relationship, initiate communication. Sometimes just having an honest conversation can help clear up misunderstandings and bring about connection. Forgive yourself and learn to grow. I made mistakes, and the hardest part is facing regret. However, I realize that beating yourself up only makes things worse. Learning to forgive yourself is the first step to healing and moving forward. Cherish the relationships that really matter, ultimately. I learned that nothing is more precious than love and connection with people who truly care about you. Don't let fleeting emotions make you lose it. If you are experiencing confusion, disorientation, or any conflict within yourself, take a moment to reflect, face yourself, and choose the right path. I have learned that strength is not only about standing firm, but also knowing when to stop.